All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we are looking at how a natural plant compound could act as a highly precise tool against prostate cancer and potentially change the way we look at hormone therapy forever. We're going to dive into some genuinely fascinating research that bridges the gap between everyday nutrition and complex oncology. Specifically, we're looking at a plant flavonoid that is showing some absolutely remarkable potential and how we understand, approach, and combat one of the most common cancers in men.
So think about the strawberries sitting in your fridge right now. There's a wild bit of cognitive dissonance here, isn't there? How on earth could an everyday fruit hold the key to intercepting deadly cellular growth signals? Honestly, it sounds a little bit like science fiction. We're so trained to think that complex diseases require incredibly complex synthesized drugs. But as we'll see in the data we're unpacking today, certain compounds naturally hidden inside these fruits possess incredibly precise biological power.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover fueling prostate cancer, introduce Fisetin, look at it as a hormone therapy, explore some extra anti-cancer mechanisms, and finally take it from the lab to real life.
Starting right off with Part 1, Fueling Prostate Cancer. To figure out how to stop this thing, we really have to understand what feeds it. And this brings us to a foundational discovery in oncology. Early researchers like Charles Huggins made this profound observation. Cancer isn't always autonomous. Its growth can actually be sustained and propagated by hormonal function in the host. Basically, they found out that prostate cancer cells are practically addicted to male hormones. Normal prostate cells rely on testosterone for everyday survival, sure, but malignant cells, they are completely aggressively hooked on it. If you cut that fuel line, the tumor actually shrinks, or involutes. It's actively feeding on the body's natural hormones to survive and multiply.
So the crucial piece of the puzzle is understanding the mechanics of that addiction. Think of androgens like testosterone as fuel. But, fuel just sitting in a tank doesn't really do anything on its own, right? It needs an engine. In our cells, that engine is the androgen receptor. When the hormone binds to this receptor, it turns the engine on, telling specific genes to command the prostate cells to multiply. In a healthy cell, this engine idles normally. But in prostate cancer cells, the pedal is pushed straight to the metal. The tumor hijacks the system, demanding huge levels of androgens to aggressively expand.
Moving on to Part 2, Introducing Fisetin.
And this brings us to our hero, a natural compound that might just have the power to shut that runaway engine down. Look, we basically live in a modern toxic soup. Exhaust emissions, cigarette smoke, industrial chemicals, it's everywhere. But research shows certain plant flavonoids act as a remarkable natural shield against it. In studies where a highly carcinogenic compound from exhaust and grilled meat was used to induce lung cancer, just adding a specific flavonoid actually reduced the cancerous lesions. It provided a real tangible barrier against chemically induced cancers. The plant kingdom seriously holds some powerful countermeasures to our environment.
That potent protective flavonoid? It's called Fisetin. And the crazy part is you don't need a prescription for it. It's hiding in plain sight at the grocery store. You can find Fisetin in strawberries, apples, grapes, onions, mangoes, cucumbers, you name it. It's a completely accessible dietary compound that harbors some highly unnatural cancer-fighting abilities.
All right, Part 3, Fisetin as hormone therapy.
Now that we know what it is, let's explore exactly how Fisetin executes its targeted strike on cancer cells. This perfectly illustrates the difference in how we can fight the disease. Conventional hormone therapies, which are often called chemical castration, try to empty the fuel tank. They systemically lower or suppress testosterone throughout the entire body. It starves the cancer, for sure, but that massive systemic drop causes incredibly severe side effects: extreme fatigue, muscle loss, lowered bone density, and huge mood shifts. But Fisetin, it takes a way more elegant approach. Instead of draining the whole body's fuel tank, it goes straight for the engine. It's a potent inhibitor because it directly blocks the androgen receptor signaling pathway itself. It blocks the signal right at the cancer site, inhibiting growth without draining the body's necessary hormones. It's literally the difference between cutting power to an entire city versus just flipping off the one bad switch at the source.
To see exactly how effective this precision strike was, researchers studied its effects on two different human prostate cancer cell lines, DU145 and PC3. These cells have different androgen signaling behaviors. What they found was that Fisetin's growth inhibitory effects were cell-dependent, and it was especially potent at stopping growth in the DU145 line. Even better, Fisetin demonstrated the ability to inhibit something called AKT phosphorylation.
Think of AKT as a chemical survival switch that tells the cell not to die, keeping the cancer alive against the body's wishes. Well, Physin directly flips that survival switch off in those cells, rendering the cancer vulnerable.
Next up, Part 4, Additional Anti-Cancer Mechanisms. But Physin isn't just a one-trick pony. It doesn't stop at the androgen receptor. It has a massive arsenal of other ways to combat tumors. Just look at the sheer volume of these rapid-fire mechanisms. It activates p53 and PTN, which are essentially the body's natural tumor-suppressing security guards. It increases protective glutathione. It inhibits COX-2 and NF-κB, essentially shutting down the chronic inflammation that feeds cancer. It inhibits MMP, a destructive enzyme tumors use to chew through healthy tissue and spread, and it targets Aurora B kinase to halt out-of-control cell division.
Let's zoom in on a couple of those major pathways, MTR and WNT beta-catenin. These are incredibly complex communication routes in our cells. The WNT beta-catenin pathway regulates genes involved in proliferation, migration, and angiogenesis. And angiogenesis is huge. It's the biological process where a tumor creates and grows new blood vessels to continuously feed itself. By downregulating these specific pathways, Physitin actively suppresses the tumor's ability to invade other tissues and literally starves it by stopping its blood supply from forming. It essentially locks the cancer down and cuts off its supply lines.
And finally, Part 5, From Lab to Life. So Petri dish data is exciting, but does this actually work in a living, breathing body? Actually, yes. In an in vivo study using athemic nude mice, which are specially bred with suppressed immune systems, so scientists can study human tumors in a living host, this dietary flavonoid directly inhibited both androgen receptor signaling and physical tumor growth. This is the ultimate proof of concept. It shows that Physitin's mechanisms can survive digestion and metabolism to successfully fight tumors inside a living body.
And here is where it gets genuinely mind-blowing. Physitin can actually make conventional therapies work better. One of the biggest hurdles in oncology is when cancer cells adapt and become resistant to chemotherapy. But research shows that in resistant cancer types, like certain pancreatic cancers and sarcomas, adding Physitin enhanced the cellular uptake of doxorubicin, a major chemo drug. It acts like a biological skeleton key, unlocking the cell wall and allowing the conventional treatment to get back inside and do its job.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to consider the sheer potential of what we've covered today. We've seen how a compound found in everyday cucumbers and strawberries can block the specific engine that drives prostate cancer, cut off a tumor's blood supply, activate our internal security guards, and even overcome cellular resistance to chemo drugs. It leaves us with a pretty profound paradigm-shifting question. Could the next major leap in complementing hormone therapy and fighting back against prostate cancer be growing in our gardens right now? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this data empowers you to look at your daily nutrition in a completely new light.